These are stories over a 3-month period from the front line of the epidemic of knife crime in Britain.
They just stabbed him.
My brain was telling me.
Your brain was telling you that you were nearing
you're nearing death.
We're just killing each other and it's pointless.
It's still early. The guys aren't even tipping out the pubs yet. Absolutely anything could happen tomorrow.
Let's face it doesn't take much to get stabbed in our society today.
On any given day in Britain, a knife attack will intrude on a young life. The youngest to die so far this year, just 14. How best to give our youth a chance, we've been trying to find out with the help of one of the busiest trauma centres in Europe. It's, just after 1 in the morning. We've been here now for 5 days, and there have been 7 in all stabbing victims admitted to the Royal London. So at least 1 a day. And what's really sad is that the staff say it's been a slow week.
This is 16-year-old Lucas. At approximately 16:30, he's been allegedly assaulted by a group of people and sustained a single incision wound to the left upper quadrant.
Lucas Perry has been stabbed in the chest. One of 2 knife victims admitted to the Royal London Hospital this evening. His painkillers haven't kicked in.
Okay, chest x-ray, complete the primary with a D.
Consultant Martin Griffiths will soon operate on Lucas. He's stabilised, but nothing certain.
How are you doing? I'm right here. Open your eyes. Look at me. Take my hand. What's your name?
Lucas.
How old are you?
16.
16? And what happened to you?
The attacker's knife pierced his liver and punctured his stomach after Lucas refused to hand over his bike and phone to a group of teen robbers.
Got a phone call that my son had been stabbed. Just can't believe. It's absolutely awful. They've just got to open him up and see where the knife's gone, what it's hit, and take it from there, really. There's lots of things that could go wrong.
Lucas was randomly assaulted, but a rising number of victims are being specifically targeted by people who know what they're doing.
We know we're seeing a lot more, about 10% rise year on year. And we get the feeling that we're seeing more complex wounds in areas with bits joined together, junction areas like the neck and the groin, and that suggests that there's a movement towards more severe wounds, more numbers of wounds. So individual people get more wound in more dangerous areas that require the expertise of our service.
What do you think's going on then? What's going on out there?
I hope it's just a blip. I worry that there's a change in attitude towards knife injury, that people are becoming better educated on how to cause more damage.
Those often first on the scene, the paramedics, have noticed the trend too.
In the last year or 2 years, we've seen more an increase in the severity of stab wounds and in the frequency as well.
It's a 17-year-old slashed 7-8 times in the buttocks, lower back, really deep wounds. Martin is very, very worried because this man has lost a lot of blood. It's going to be touch and go. Another victim comes in, stabbed in a targeted strike several times. One patient who didn't want us to show his face had been cut around the buttocks, and the surgeon who treated him speculated his attackers were hoping to permanently damage his anus, forcing him to use a colostomy bag. One example of the twisted nature of the story of knife crime. A veteran of all the violence, Martin Griffiths has now been appointed the National Health Service's Violent Crime Reduction Chief for London to educate wider society on the causes of knife crime, to find solutions.
Let's strip away convention, shall we? Let's strip away what we expect to happen in our lives. Let's strip away resource. shelter, warmth, comfort, parenting, structure. Let's reintroduce chaotic parenting, inconsistent food, inconsistent shelter, no aspiration rather than no aspiration, and a group or a society around you in which that behaviour is the norm. And put around that a big fence over which people are judging you from and deeming you as being worthless. And let's give you no access to get out of that place. And let's see how you behave. What will happen? It's going to be explosive. It won't be positive.
I got stabbed in my arm 7 times and my trigger finger still works. When life couldn't get much worse, I was in a hospital with a nurse and I still flirt.
Today's poets, writers and musicians haven't shied away from the nightmare. Ask rapper Michael Polden, a cautionary tale from his own music video.
I got stabbed 11 times recently and what am I meant to do? Stay in my house? Hide? That's all that, you know what I mean?
This time, a blade has injured tendons in his left arm and may have severed an artery going into his wrist. He shies away from telling us exactly what happened.
So I could make a song. I got stabbed 11 times. I could have made a song that week, talking the talk, and got millions of views.
Michael, that's pretty bad.
No, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
I've got a song called It's Not That Bad.
It's back to the graph.
He's now trying to escape a world where violence is glamorized, no longer suggesting it's cool to carry.
But the bottom line is there is not one borough on the whole of this map in London that is not affected by youth violence and has not been affected by young people being murdered on the streets. And that's the reality. And, you know, the fact that we're living in a society where this is normal. How is that acceptable? Children being murdered on the street.
Roisin Kevill works alongside Martin Griffiths, an outreach worker. She offers the support some families need to prevent young people from turning to violence.
If you're big enough to be walking around with a knife and thinking you're bad enough, but the reality is these kids don't fully understand, they fully don't comprehend. Because how many of them, I do wonder, actually intend to murder? Some do, I reckon, because of the level of violence that, you know, they inflict on their victims. But I don't believe that they set out on that day, yeah, I'm going to go and murder someone.
A huge concern is revenge attacks. And ultimately the aim is to stop those young people getting readmitted back here.
Getting readmitted or becoming perpetrators. Because whether they're readmitted, that's another trauma. Or if they become perpetrators, that's an even bigger trauma.
Stopping them turning from victim
to perpetrator.
Right.
Where they'll end up in the criminal justice system, where they could end up being, you know, responsible for taking someone's life. I came on duty one day to a 17-year-old in one of our beds who'd murdered one of my clients the night before. And he got 17 years. He was 17, he looked 15. But I told him when I met him, because I don't know if he was fully responsible for that young person's death. I know now he's been charged and he's doing a life sentence. But I said to him, you don't even understand the enormity of what you've done. You cannot fathom it. I said, but if you are not guilty, you're good, innit? But if you are guilty, you better start praying, you better start repenting. You need to do something, because eventually the enormity of what you have done last night is gonna take its toll, and it's gonna weigh you down, and it's gonna hurt you emotionally and mentally.
But some seem willing to accept that guilt for the rush of revenge. Meet Jermaine, a nightclub bouncer who was attacked for refusing entry to one customer.
So this guy cut my face because he thought he was disrespected. It's a respect thing. Makes sense. It's like people are fighting for territories, people are fighting for respect. Back in the day, this would be so disrespectful that he cut my face. Back in the day, I'd have to prove a point that I haven't gone weak, so after getting back. It's pointless, because we're killing each other. It's black on black. We're just killing each other, and it's pointless.
On the wind, another emergency. The anguish was overwhelming for Frida and Peter Muller when they found out their son Gardy had been stabbed. The 15-year-old is now recovering. He was attacked on his way home from football training.
Let him be alive, God, please let him be alive. That was my concern at that point. Those were my feelings as a mom.
What I actually remember is I heard I got stabbed here, as you can see the things there, and I got a little injury, stabbed in here. And I didn't see him actually aim for there, but I didn't know. And then I remember him stabbed me here, and I think I tried to grab the knife or something, and then I was just screaming.
And those few minutes of violence are now forcing this family to question everything.
So they're saying the best thing to do is to move out of the area.
And that's the fear. It shouldn't be like that.
It's not new, so you just got to live with it.
But for Gardi, there's a realism fueled by social media.
They're always showing you videos of people getting stabbed, or they're showing you pictures of, police, they'll say they caught someone with this, and then someone that was there at the time took a picture of the actual weapon used, and it will be a knife, a gun, and it's like you look at it and you're like, well, it's London, so. Social media always like portraying it everywhere.
We are dealing with a generation that are angry, that are disheartened, that have been neglected, that are let down, that no one really cares about.
That's why Roisin and her colleagues tried to talk to stab victims straight after their surgery to tackle their emotional as well as physical injuries.
If you've got a parent who's substance misuse or mental health or there's domestic violence, you cannot nurture that child as much as that child really needs nurturing because you're consumed with whatever you're holding as the adult.
But does it depress you?
Yeah.
You know, seeing this all the time.
Oh, it breaks my heart. Because you're seeing children, you're seeing families whose lives are destroyed. You know, I had a young person here a couple of weeks ago. His mum found out on Snapchat. She found out on Snapchat that her child had been stabbed. Now, what does that say about society?
After receiving the treatment he needs, Michael discharged himself and is heading home. So you worried about going back out there onto the streets?
Not worried. I'm not worried. You just got to be, I think, more aware and more on point. If you know other people are rolling or carrying things like that, then you're going to carry things like that to protect yourself also. And then it becomes...
And there comes a spiral.
That effect.
Do you carry a knife?
I used to. My little brother's been stabbed as well.
Which one? The 21-year-old?
Yeah.
Did he carry a knife?
He recently got arrested for carrying a knife.
For carrying a knife. And is that the problem that a lot of young men have in London? That fear that they're going to be attacked, so they've got to carry.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's a spiral that just goes
How many
on
people
and on.
have probably seen or heard about a friend or something that's happened to them, and they think, oh, that's not how I'm gonna safeguard myself and I'm gonna carry this to protect myself. I don't want that to happen to me. It's a way. It's part of the game, isn't it? That's what I think.
What game? Life?
Yeah, it's part of
life. Part of being in London, a young man in London.
Yeah, maybe part of growing up in London gets like that. I think so.
Can't sleep well at night because sometimes I'm still up because I'm just like paranoid, or it's just like I think about it and I don't want to sleep. So, you know, it's one of those things.
Back at home, Gardi is experiencing nightmares, flashbacks of the day he was stabbed.
These guys, they come up to us and they said, where you guys from? And then I just froze, everything just froze, like I didn't know what to say. Then my friend got off the bike and he just said, run. I trip over, like I'm stumbling. I don't even remember him stabbing me here and stuff. And that's when he got me here. I was bleeding. And then like saw loads of blood pouring out. I was just holding it tight, squeezing it. I told myself, all I gotta do is keep calm at that time. Like, don't panic, because if I panic, then you never know, because your heart starts racing, and then like you know, you're just scared. Like, it's more if you panic, if I panicked, I feel like I would have passed away. If I was like panicking and I didn't know what to do, I would have passed away. But in that situation, I told myself, just keep calm.
Football eases his mind, helps dispel the memories. And he's good, hoping to turn professional. He's built a life around football, where he lives, and doesn't want to leave because of what happened. But his family's first instinct is to escape.
If you're not safe, there's no way you're going to play football. If you're not safe, you're not going to do the GCSE.
But there's a tension.
Moving away from this part of London, will that give you peace of mind?
Probably it will give a little bit peace of mind because...
The dilemma of a decent family being driven away by a violence that's staying put.
Moving. I'm completely against it, to be honest. Because I have football and I have school. No other way I'm going to put it. I'm just against the fact of moving. It's not that they targeted me that.
I know.
It's
I know.
like about me being safe.
How do you know that they didn't target you?
Because I'm not involved with anything.
I know.
Why would they come attack an innocent person, man? Why?
Hey, what are you saying? You alright? Yeah, man. Cool.
6 weeks later, Guardia is catching
How you
up with
doing?
Levine Smith,
Huh?
his caseworker from the St. Giles Trust. She's been providing him with added support from the moment he was stabbed.
They've been supportive and yeah.
They said they were gonna like refer me to a counsellor or something like that, and I said I'll think about it. I'll be lying in bed and I'll just get frustrated sometimes, and I'll just be angry sometimes,
Yeah.
like why me, stuff like that.
Why him? Why all the other victims of knife crime? So many young lives disrupted at the point of a blade. Lucas's operation lasted 2 hours.
But the wound goes straight through you, goes through the muscles and into your liver, front and back, right through your liver, and it hits the stomach and goes and punches a hole in your stomach.
He's done it himself.
He's sore and on the mend. But what about his family?
All of you have been traumatised by this. All of you. Even ones who look all right.
Yeah.
If you look all right, you're probably not all right.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's going to be a long process. Not 6 weeks, not 6 months. It can be years before you're back in a happier place.
Being home will help that process, and we catch up with Lucas a few days after being discharged.
You're okay now, are you?
Yeah, I'm good now.
He's now finally able to tell me what happened.
And they just started pulling out knives, but I didn't. I'm not gonna run away.
What were they after?
They wanted a pushback or something. I don't know. I was on the phone, but then I come over because he was trying to stab one of my mates. So just come over and he stabbed me.
Well, I think it's just the way the youngsters now think. It's just one of those things. You hear of it happening so often. It's just life. It's just something that could happen in their lifetime.
If you're walking along the street and you see them, what's going to happen?
Obviously, I wanted to go for that. I wanted to feel what I felt, but I wouldn't stab.
Edmonton in North London. A youth on a moped joins 2 other men attacking with knives in broad daylight. A young man pinned to the floor. The shouts of onlookers have no effect. They slash and cut with impunity as normal life goes on around. As the attackers escape, one of the weapons clearly visible. Onlookers then try to help. An ambulance eventually arrived and took the victim to hospital. He survives. But this was a warning. They'd have killed him if they felt like it. The attack, an everyday reality in many of our cities. Where did society go wrong? A consensus is now developing that tackling knife crime needs a holistic approach, that the perpetrators, as well as the victims, must be treated with some degree of understanding.
I'm angry, not with these young boys, not with their parents, but with a society that's failed, not just once or twice, but throughout their entire lives, and allowed us to create a situation whereby violence is part and parcel of how they present to me. And they're all victims of violence. They're not perpetrators. Every person I see who's been stabbed or shot has had somebody use a weapon on them. And they deserve my help. I know it's easy to fall into that sort of abyss of apathy and negativity about the lives of these people, these boys, these things happen to them and them and them and them and them. and tolerate it. But no, I know that every single one of these kids doesn't want the life they've got. But when you ask them deep down, they don't want the fear or the anxiety or the stress. When you understand the rules of the game, you understand what happens.
And can you see that it's kind of oozing here?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the battle against knife crime, teenagers in parts of London now have the option of learning life-saving skills alongside their studies.
How long?
Until the paramedics get here.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Martin's team is trying to raise awareness. It's come to this. Innocence erased at so young an age, but the fake blood may just save real lives and make a young person think twice about carrying a knife.
So what happens if you're out and then you find out someone's carrying a knife? What are you going to do?
Tell them, what do you think you're doing?
You're going to go to the police?
Yeah, it's because you're scared.
No, but like going to the police could get you.
So what? So you're going to tell me that it's all good it's good to carry?
No, it's not good at all. But like because I come from like and like some of the people that I know, and not I know, but I've heard like these gangs and rivalries that they're in, they think it plays some significance in their life, and they don't really understand the impact in the long term that can bring them if they get hurt or are in danger. I don't know, someone like won't like another person, and then all of these people that are friends with the people just have a reason not to like another person. And it just escalates.
People who carry it are not evil people. They do it for fear, do it for protection, they do it out of peer pressure, they do it to be part of their gang, they do it because that's what everybody else does, because no one else doesn't do it. But knives make you more likely to be violent because it's in your pocket and you can use it.
Any big metropolis is burdened by the capacity of a few for violence. That will never go away. But when it comes to rising levels of knife crime, Martin Griffiths argues things can change if society appreciates the true nature of the problem. After 3 months filming on the front line of this crisis, the complexity of the issue is clear. Less so, perhaps, the solution.